Hello everyone, welcome to Everest official YouTube channel. Today we have a special guest who got 8.5 from Ielts and he's here with us. I first want to congratulate you with this high score, and I also want to congratulate your teacher who is Abdukadir Rakhimov. Both of you guys are really genius, and please introduce yourself a little bit to our audience.
So I am Abdukadir, and I study at Ielts. I have been studying there for 2 years now, and I'm at the second course. And I previously studied at MUMI, which stands for Mirza Ulugh Specialized Boarding School. And I've been studying Ielts for like a year and a half now.
So how long did it take for you to take Ielts? You know, there have been so many questions like this. So first, let's start one by one. So how did you involve in this language?
Well, it started when I was really young, when I really wanted to watch cartoons, and I couldn't find good ones in Uzbek. So I decided to search around the internet, and my parents picked out cartoons like Caillou. That's a really good cartoon, by the way. And I looked around, found some cartoons, and I started watching. And I think this was during my 6th age or something like that.
You were too young then, right?
Yes, I was very young.
Okay, you also mentioned when we were having conversation a little bit earlier that your parents also know English very well, and you also have conversation at home. So is that the reason why you got this high score at this age? You were only 16?
I think it contributed a lot, since practicing my English regularly helped me improve it as I went. And sometimes my parents would point out mistakes I made, and they would help me define words and rephrase sentences. So I think that definitely helped, and of course that is useful.
How was the process with Oysara?
I mean, the process went well. Oysara realized that I knew English well, and then she decided to help me out with the IELTS side of English. So she had an intensive course, I guess, and then she would sit me down, send me videos, explain every single picture of the board, and be like, this is how you write this text. And what she basically told me was she had to squeeze in a whole 2 or 3 months of studies into 2 weeks. And
wow, that is amazing.
Yes, it took a lot of time, and I decided to dedicate myself to it, and I think it went very well.
So my conclusion is your general English was perfect. That's why, due to her statistics, due to her strategies, I mean, you could deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Were you expecting 8.5, or was that higher?
Well, I was hoping for an 8.5, but I was not sure. I thought maybe because of my lack of writing capabilities, I would drop to an 8, or maybe even a little bit lower, which was very frightening for me. But my expected score was a little bit different. I hoped for a listening 9, reading 9, writing 6.5, and speaking 9. But that wasn't what happened, and I guess it wasn't what I expected. So you were expecting overall 8 at least, yeah? Yes, at least an 8.
Okay. So is that this first time taking IELTS?
Yes, this is my first time ever. Well, I did take a month of mocks in Everest, and it was, I think, really helpful, because when I went to Everest, they would sit everyone down and not let anyone out, and then meticulously review every single question, where they got the answers from, and then help out students who didn't know what the answers were with their conclusions. And the thing was, the first time I ever went for an exam, like an IELTS exam, it was at King's Academy mocks, and I got a 7.5, which was at that time devastating.
Yeah, and depressing for you.
Yes, and then I improved a lot. I think I spent about a year or maybe half a year just for IELTS.
Yeah, I think you are too judgy about yourself.
Well, some might call it that. I just call it improving a lot.
Of course, trying to be better, right? So you talked about mock exams. So that created you an atmosphere where you can test yourself, right?
Yes.
Were there also any moments that you wanted to give up or something else?
Well, the first exam was, as I said, very depressing because I expected to be an instantaneous prodigy. And that wasn't what happened. I think I grew gradually. At first it was 7.5 and then an 8, and then like for a long time it was just an 8, and then after that in the real exam I got an 8.5, which was a reward, I guess, for all my hard work. Of course.
So how many hours you spent on daily? You said that it was like an intensive course.
Well, I don't remember exactly. I think it all went by in such a blur. And you know how if you dedicate yourself to something, or if you're studying something intensively, there's no stopping, and time flies by. You don't even notice it. It's just like, oh, I have to meet this deadline. I have to do this. I have to do that. So it passes by very quick.
Amazing. So we have also questions from our subscribers. Let me read them. They're also in Uzbek, but we are having this conversation in English, so I'm going to translate it for you. So they're asking how did you learn new words? This is something they struggle. So how was the process for you?
When I was doing readings, I basically circle the words which I didn't know, and then I would go back, review, and write them down. And these words, I would keep them with me. It was a notebook, and every time I opened it, like to do math or something, I would glance at it, and I would just ask myself, do I know that word? And then if I couldn't remember, I would go back, read it like 3 times, or even write down on the other page, like definitions and then the actual word, and then switch it up and be like the words and then the definition. I would also search up on Google the word, and then because there are like multiple meanings of the single word, I would go back to every single definition and then search up sentences that included the words, so I could get a sense of how they were used in the English language.
So you learned them in context and also throughout the Google, All right, there is the second question. So they are very fascinated by your age, actually. So please talk about also your previous teachers. Have you also had some teachers who taught you grammar or something?
Well, I never went to any study centers or language centers. I usually kept to myself. The only teacher I went to, like as a study center or as a club or whatever, was in King's Academy. It was a long time ago, and I was studying for Al-White back then. I wanted to get into Westminster Lyceum, so I went to his course, but he didn't exactly teach me English. It was more of like a math thing. And then after that, I decided to go to Everest, and that's actually a very long story.
How did you find out?
Well, me and my friend, his name is Abdukadir, were want to improve together, and so he invited me to do homework somewhere. And when we're picking out a place to do it, we didn't have any place to sit down and do mock study together. So we first picked Al-Shirnawai Library, but then when we went there, we weren't allowed to speak, and then they would shush us every time, kick us out of the room.
I see.
So we couldn't do it there. But then we're we could go to another place. We tried going to KFC, but we got distracted, bought food, and then just left. And in the end, we're why don't we go to Everest? So we sat down. We went to Everest. He studied there back then. So we went to Everest, and my friend was like, why didn't you try, a placement test? So I decided, I was like, no, let's not do it. It's so boring. I just don't want to spend an hour doing tests. And he was like, okay, come on, do it, try it. So I decided to try it out, and then they got my results, and they assigned me to a teacher. So I was basically I got into a group without knowing what was happening.
So you had no idea about Oysara's result or something, I thought that Oysara, she already has 8.5. I mean, you were aiming at to, get a teacher who has higher band score instead of 8 or 7.5, let's say, right? I thought like this, but the story is really, different right now. Wow, that's amazing.
But it was
it's a fate,
Yeah, it was fate, and it did, I think, have some relations to her score as well, because if I had seen that her results were 7.5 and she was trying to teach me, I wouldn't have gone.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Then you checked the level of her English, and she fascinated you.
She was a good speaker. We tried speaking mock immediately after, so I got a sense of how her English was.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so next question we have. So what was your motivation to get 8.5? So as you guys have realized that he wasn't aiming at getting 8.5, but at least 8. But so what was the motivation behind this score?
That's a very weird question. But here, it started off when I was Googling Ielts scores, and I was like, I want to get a very good score so I can study at a prestigious university. So when I Googled it,
abroad.
Yes, abroad, of course. And when I Googled it, it said 8.5 opens many doors for academic purposes. So I decided, right then I looked at it and I was like, I'm going to get an 8.5. And another motivation, just for writing, this is just for writing, was that my teachers in Al-Wait would grade my writing very low. And most of my other English teachers would say my only weakness is my writing. So I decided to improve on it, and I think I did pretty well.
So your writing, I can see it's 7.5, you know. This is a high achievement. So what did you do to, master this 7.5 or master the skill?
Well, I used to write down essays. Me and my friend, Abdukadir, wrote down 2-3 essays per day, and then we would compare each other's essays. We would learn what was the difference and how we could change it. And then we'd also look at a sample essay written about the same topic and then compare all 3 of ours. And then we would send it to a teacher, and then the teacher would review and give it back. We'd read it through again. So it basically took a lot of time for us to get a sense of how it went and how the structure should be.
Yeah, so you analyzed it a lot.
Yes.
Like you did in the reading.
I think that the most important part of writing isn't the process of writing, it's the process of analyzation.
That is cool. Nobody has mentioned it before. Okay, my next question is, let's talk about listening, because this all goes back to your childhood, I think, because you said that you started learning English when you were 6 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe even younger.
Yeah, wow, when you started watching cartoons or something. Cartoons. So, then what happened?
My father encouraged me to listen to audiobooks, which are basically books being read by other people.
Native speakers, yeah?
Native speakers, yes. And when I listened to them, I think they helped me improve my listening, but I also watched a lot of movies, and there were times when I missed words, and when they were speaking really fast or were using slang, but I would go back, listen to it again, listen to a lot of songs, and then it gradually increased, and I'm pretty happy with my results now.
But this result could have been 9.
Yeah, it most definitely could have been. Well, I think it was mostly due to inexperience. If I had a little bit more, let's say,
understanding of the strategies,
because if I had only known how many numbers were in a telephone number,
oh my God,
I would have been able to guess.
You just missed some numbers there.
I just missed some numbers.
In section 1.
Yes,
which was the easiest.
Yeah, which is the easiest. Because I think it was the first question, and I got distracted. And I was like, oh, these headphones are new. I don't know what's happening. They told us to put it on, and they played a song. Not a song, a sound.
Yeah.
And then I was nervous, I would just say.
Let's talk about reading. It is 9. It is 9.
Yes.
So what did you do? Were you interested in reading books, let's say?
I was really interested because usually when I came back home, we didn't have a TV, and the computer was usually kept locked, or we weren't allowed to watch movies on it. So I would basically come back home and read books. My favorite book ever is Eragon. I think maybe it's on the screen right now. So Eragon is a very interesting book about fantasy, and I really liked it. I read a lot of books, and every book was 600 pages, and I read about 5 of them, one after the other, and I read them over and over again because they were so interesting and so compelling to read. And then, aside from that, I was getting ready for SATs, which are an even harder version of IELTS reading. So it was nothing exceptional for me, I think.
So you had overall comprehension of reading already?
Yeah, and I think by the end of it, I had a lot of time left over. And I just didn't want to go back and recheck them, because mostly when I finish early, when I look back and try to fix answers, I usually, you know, change them to the incorrect version.
The reason why you couldn't come here earlier was because of your exam, you said, right? SAT.
Yeah.
So how was that also?
Well,
let's talk about it if it's not a secret.
Yeah, it's not a secret. SATs are very hard, of course, and everyone knows that. And it's also... unlike IELTS, it's based on a curve, which means like if a higher number of students do well, like the chances are that you'll get a lower score. Yeah, so the curve, it depends on the curve as well, and I had a hard time dealing with that.
Do you also have to know mathematics?
Of course, there are two sections in math. There is no calculator and calculator. And both of them require logical thinking and critical analyzation. So it took a lot on me. And since like they come one after the other, you can't pull yourself together. And since you have no break, it takes a lot on you.
Yeah. So you were under pressure a lot.
Yes. And this was my first time taking the SATs as well. So in this case, I was also very, anxious.
How can a person be so motivated and determined to success?
Well, it firstly really depends on family. If they are encouraging you constantly and helping you out with applications and other documents. For example, when I was applying to IELTS or SAT, I didn't do the paperwork. It was basically my family taking care of it and letting me do practice whatever I want, giving me time alone and stuff like that.
So you don't work anywhere, you just focus on your studies right now?
Yes. No, I was planning to work soon as an SAT instructor, but as soon as my results come out, I'm going to start focusing on working more.
You're saying that you're going to study abroad, so which university are you applying for?
I'm really hoping to get into Tokyo University. It's ranked,
Japan?
Yeah, Japan. It's very prestigious, and I really like how they teach, and their campuses
Yes, especially in the IT field, right?
Yeah.
So what is your profession will be then? Can you clarify that?
I'm trying to become a mechatronics engineer, which is basically an engineer who builds and codes robots. And they don't have to be artificial intelligence. It can also be just manufacture robots, chains and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Okay. Can you suggest one thing that can help students to get fluency? When you are talking, it flows, it goes smoothly. So what is the secret of it? Of course, there is no secret. It's practice. But how did you use to practice?
Well, never be afraid to use your English, and whenever you can, you should use it, because it's basically practice, as she already said. So you have to keep using it, you have to keep practicing on it. And maybe listening to other people talk will help you as well. TED Talks are very useful. And talk to people, that's it.
Yeah, so whom did you talk to when you had no teacher?
I had a lot of friends who knew English. I had a lot of native friends.
So you were surrounded by the people who had this ability, yeah?
Yeah. And that's why I also decided to transfer to Al-Wayed, because it also has a lot more fluent students. I also made a couple native friends.
Yeah, you also mentioned your friend. What was his name? You were practicing with them.
My...
Abdukadir or something?
Abdukadir.
Abdukadir, yes. He also knows English. What is his score?
He knows English, but he hasn't tried applying for IELTS yet, but he's planning to soon. And I don't know his score. Hopefully
maybe he's also going to get 8.5.
Yeah, hopefully
yes. Okay, so I'm going to read the next question. So what are you also going to take 9 in the future, or is this the
the end?
The end, yeah.
Well, I believe that if there is anything in it for me, I guess just getting another number is not going to define anything in me. So I think this is enough for me to apply and get into multiple universities. So I just think it's unnecessary for me to try again and just put myself under more pressure just so I can get a 0.5 higher.
So you're not obsessed with the score, but obsessed with the language itself.
Yeah, the language itself is very beautiful, and if you take some time to look at their literature and how meaningful the language is, you're going to really appreciate it.
Okay, can you please recommend our subscribers, especially the students, candidates who are preparing for IELTS? You know, they are really rely on those numbers, you know.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Yeah, they want those numbers. So why don't they need to focus on this? What do you think?
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, it doesn't change who you are. It doesn't matter if you get a 6.5 or a 7 or a 7.5. In the end, it's just you, and it's what people are considering you to be as. It doesn't matter what you get.
Do you believe in the ability, like you said that you know mathematics?
Yes.
I've seen so many students who knew mathematics achieved higher scores in IELTS too. So do you believe in this stereotype? I mean, if you know mathematics or something complicated like this, are you highly likely to get like higher band score in IELTS?
I read a couple of, not research, I guess, yes, research online that say people who are multilingual tend to be smarter because they can use multiple languages at once, and that makes their brain more agile. So yeah, I think the more languages you know, the more smart you tend to be.
So you know also Russian, maybe?
I think Russian has to be fixed. I think I have to, work on it a lot more.
Yeah, but you were saying multiple language.
Yeah, multiple Uzbek, English, those are multiple languages, but I also definitely have to learn Russian because when I speak, it sounds terrible.
No, it's not about Russian right now, but the way you mentioned multiple languages, I thought that you also knew Russian very well, so it was easier for you to learn English because they, kind of similar to each other, right?
I don't think so. Like, Russian is very complicated. It's like it's got a lot of what do you call endings? Conjugations.
Yes, of course. So I want to also say to the audience that English is not that hard, right?
Yes, I think when it was ranked, there was a ranking of the most difficult languages. It was considered to be
Chinese?
easy. Yeah.
Chinese was the most difficult one, right?
And the
Arabic,
easiest was there was a couple of languages, but I think English was definitely in the top 10 of the easiest.
That is great. So I want to go back to reading skills. So what did you do to acquire that skills intensively? So what was the key for it?
Well, as I said, I didn't really work on my reading skills intensively. I just fixed it as time progressed. I read a lot of books, and I'm telling you, it's like a lot of books. My relatives brought me books, and I read tons of them. A lot of series, for example, Percy Jackson, Eragon, and then there was the Cater series.
Amazing. So it's more than 30, around 30?
No, 30 is a small number. I think I've read more than 200 books by now. I'm like...
In English?
In English, yes, because I really like fantasy and adventure books. I read a ton of them, and they help me gain a broader view.
Okay, so if you already have this general background of a language, then you won't have any difficulties, right? So do you also suggest reading books or loving something? You said that you love reading, yes?
Yes.
So does that help you? Did that help you?
Lately I've been trying to more force myself to read more important books as 7 Habits of a Healthy Teen or Atomic Habits. Those books are helpful. They should be helpful, and I have to read them. But whenever I try reading, I get really bored, and then I drop them. I don't like to read. So I think you should do what you love most, like read fantasy books, and then redirect it so it's useful.
Yes, of course. That is
great. For example, if you like to watch movies, let's say, then you just read the movie's book, or listen to watch the movie in English.
So depending on the interests of a person, it varies.
They should modify it so it's useful for them.
Thank you very much, Abdukadir, for coming here.
You're welcome.
And your recommendations are so useful, and I hope that our subscribers also benefit. And at the end, I want to congratulate you one more time again and hope you will be successful in every aspect of the life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So guys, that's all. I think you all got the idea of how getting this higher band score. First of all, this is just an obsession with English and family background, and also being very, very motivated. Okay, thank you guys for watching this video, and don't forget to like and also writing your own comments. See you. Bye.